Powerful people don't speak to be understood. They speak to control the space. And sometimes, control means not finishing the sentence. Because the mind hates unfinished things, unanswered questions, dangling thoughts, open loops. And when you speak halfway, then stop. You don't lose power, you gain it. You force their mind to keep running, to lean in, to replay what you said, to fill in what you didn't. And what they imagine is always louder than what you could have said. That's the trick. Most people talk until they feel safe, until they've said enough to be understood, to be clear, to be liked. But you speak until you see their uncertainty rise. Then you stop. You let the pause echo. You let the sentence hang. You let their mind do the work, because once they start finishing your sentence, they're no longer thinking about what they want. They're thinking about you. And that's how you take over, without saying more, without getting louder, without revealing anything. This video is about a specific kind of psychological power, the kind that leaves people chasing your next word, even when there isn't one. Let's begin. Cold Linguistics, Volume 3, Unfinished Sentences. Part 1. The Psychology of Open Loops. The human brain hates incompletion. It craves resolution, closure, answers. When a sentence trails off, when a point is left hanging, when someone says, "I was going to tell you something, but..." Your brain lights up. It leans in. It starts finishing what wasn't finished, and it can't stop. This is called an open loop, a psychological structure that demands to be closed. And whoever creates the loop controls the tension. Because once the mind is trapped in the unresolved, it becomes hyper-focused, overactive, obsessive. And here's the real twist. The tension doesn't come from what you say, it comes from what you don't. Most people talk to relieve pressure, to feel complete, to release the energy. But if you know how to hold that tension, if you know how to leave the door open and walk away, you don't just control the conversation, you control what happens after it ends, because they'll keep playing it back, trying to understand what you meant, why you paused, what you didn't say, and the mind, in its desperation to close the loop, will reveal more than you ever could with words. It will project its own fears. Imagine worst-case scenarios, assign meanings that weren't there, and all you did was stop the sentence. That's power, not by volume, not by force, but by unresolved tension. Because sometimes silence isn't the absence of words, it's the presence of control. Part 2. The Power of Suspense and Suggestion. Words don't need to be complete to create impact. Sometimes what you suggest, without finishing, says more than a full confession ever could. That's suspense, that's psychological suggestion, and it's one of the coldest tools in strategic communication. Think about this. There's something I've always wanted to say about that night. Pause. But maybe it's better if I don't. You didn't explain. You didn't reveal. You didn't accuse. And yet, you created more emotional chaos than if you had said everything. Now they're thinking, what was it? Was it about me? Why did they stop? What are they holding back? And the best part, they'll fill the gap with their own guilt, fear, or ego. Because people don't just hate uncertainty. They personalize it. When you leave something open-ended, they assume it's about them. They assign meaning. They start rewriting the past to fit the unknown. And this is where suggestion becomes control. You didn't accuse them. But now they feel accused. You didn't express hurt. But now they feel guilty. You didn't even finish the sentence. But now they're obsessed with how it might have ended. You said less, and now they feel more. This is the reverse of traditional influence. Instead of trying to prove a point, you create a vacuum, and human psychology will rush to fill that vacuum with whatever haunts them most. That's the secret. Leave them with a door half open, and they'll push it the rest of the way with their own mind. Part 3. The Tactics. 5 ways to use unfinished sentences. Unfinished sentences don't show weakness. They show control. Because when you stop mid-thought, you force their mind to finish it for you, and that's how you stay in their head, long after you've gone silent. Here are 5 ways to do it. 1. Trailing off mid-sentence. Start clear, then pull back. It's not that I don't trust you, it's just that... Pause. Let them sit in the silence. You didn't accuse, but now they're scrambling to fill in what you didn't say with their own fears. This isn't passive, it's precise. 2. Inserting ambiguous pauses. You're mid-conversation. They expect you to continue, but you stop, on purpose. You know, people like that usually have a pattern, and once you notice it, pause, let it hang. They lean in, they wait, they wonder what you were about to say. But you don't give it. You move on, and that gap becomes a loop, running in their head again and again. 3. Starting with intent, ending with doubt. Begin with strength, end with ambiguity. I've been meaning to tell you what I saw that night, but maybe it's not my place. You set the emotional hook, then walk away. Now they need the rest. Now they're off balance. This isn't withholding, it's psychological leverage. 4. Responding with half-truths. Someone asks a direct question. You answer it dash, but only part way. Yeah, there's more to that story, but I'm not sure you'd want to hear it. What are you hiding? Are you protecting them? Are you judging? You never say. They spiral trying to guess. And the guessing keeps them mentally tethered to you. 5. Ending with a signal, not a statement. Finish your sentence. With tone, not content. I guess that's all you really need to know. For now. Then stop. No explanation, no softening, just a hard end. That doesn't feel like an end, and the feeling you leave behind does more damage than anything you could have said. These aren't just ways of speaking. They're psychological traps, designed to leave people off balance, unsure, hooked, and the more they try to finish the sentence, the deeper they walk into your frame. Part 4. The psychological fallout. Words end, but unresolved tension doesn't. That's the power of unfinished sentences. You don't break the mind with what you say. You break it with what you don't. 1. They replay the moment. You said something vague. You paused. You moved on. But they didn't. They keep playing it back, over-analyzing your tone, reconstructing the moment, searching for meaning. That was never actually given. You've already left the room. They're still in the sentence. 2. They fill in the gaps with fear. When you leave a statement open, their mind rushes to close it. But the way they close it tells you everything about them. If they hear judgment, they fear judgment. If they hear guilt, they feel guilt. If they assume the worst, that's because they know it's possible. You didn't accuse them, They accused themselves. All you did was stop talking. 3. They try to pull you back. They'll ask, "Wait, what do you mean? Why did you stop? Can you finish what you were saying?" But now they're the one chasing the frame. You're no longer reacting. You're being pursued. And the more you stay still, the more they lose composure. You never had to raise your voice. You never had to explain. You just stopped at the exact right moment. And that moment is still echoing in them. 4. They begin to self-reveal. Open loops make people uncomfortable, and discomfort makes them vulnerable. In their effort to understand you, they start revealing more of themselves. They confess, they over-explain, they dig for clarity. And with every sentence they add, they're giving you what you refuse to give them. Exposure. That's the inversion. You said less. Now they say more. You paused. Now they pour. You gave nothing. Now they give everything. Unfinished sentences aren't silence. They're a trigger, a mirror, a slow drip psychological game that leaves the other person unable to walk away clean. Because when someone finishes your sentence for you, they're not in control. They're already inside your frame. Part 5. The Mastery. Anyone can trail off, but only a strategist knows when to stop speaking, and why. Because unfinished sentences aren't passive. They're precision. They must be timed, calibrated, held, and most of all, earned. 1. Don't rush the pause. Control it. The gap only creates tension if you can hold it without flinching. So you don't stop talking because you're uncertain. You stop talking because you've already said enough. Let the silence stretch. Let them squirm. Let them ask, but don't break it. The longer you hold, the more they believe. There was more you could have said, but chose not to. That's power. 2. Start with certainty. End with ambiguity. The strongest open loops begin with clarity and collapse into suggestion. I used to trust you completely, but after what happened last month, pause, no follow-up. Now they're scrambling to identify what happened. Was it something they said? Did someone tell you something? What do you know? You never answer. They never stop wondering. Match tone to the message. If you trail off with uncertainty, you look unsure. But if you trail off with emotional control, you look calculated. Your eyes stay focused, your body relaxed, your delivery neutral. They'll feel like you know more than you're saying, because you do, even if you don't. 4. Practice in low-stakes conversations. You don't wait for confrontation to train. Start with casual dialogue. Cut off after a bold statement. Leave a point half-made. Drop a personal insight and walk away from it. Study the reaction. Watch them lean forward. Feel the vacuum of curiosity you created. The goal isn't confusion, it's tension, and tension equals control. 5. Know when to walk away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is end the conversation while the sentence is still hanging in the air. Maybe one day you'll understand why I did what I did, but stand, leave, disappear. Now they carry the weight, not you. The loop is open, you're already gone, and the longer it stays unresolved, the deeper your imprint becomes. This is not about games. It's about leverage, influence, psychological distance. You're not loud, You're not dramatic. You're just someone who knows when to stop talking, so they never stop thinking. Part 6. Conclusion. Make them finish what you didn't say. You don't need to speak louder to be heard. You don't need to explain more to be understood, and you don't need to finish the sentence to finish the game. Because the most powerful words are the ones left hanging, unresolved, unclosed. They echo, they linger, they infect the silence. While they're replaying the moment, you've already moved on. While they're filling in the blanks, they're exposing more than you ever did. They confess, they overthink, they reach for closure. In a conversation, you ended halfway on purpose. That's psychological leverage. You didn't argue, you didn't clarify, you didn't confront, you suggested, you paused, you disappeared, and now they're stuck in the space you left behind. From this moment forward, you don't speak to be complete, you speak to create tension. You don't speak to express, you speak to initiate loops. Because in high-level communication, finishing the sentence is a gift, one you don't owe anyone. CTA. For the next 48 hours, leave things unsaid. Let the sentence hang. Let the silence speak. Let them finish what you didn't say. Because once their mind takes over the message, you've already won.